Hello everyone, in today's episode we'll talk about AppGyver variables. In AppGyver you have different types of variables. You have the app variable, you have the page variable, you have the page parameters, the data variables, you even have special variables which are called system variables or sensor variables. In this tutorial I will show you when to use which variable and what is a variable actually. Let's start with what's a variable. So what's a variable? A variable is a place where you can store temporary information. This information is only valid at the life cycle of the program or of a page, for example in AppGyver. See a variable as a box or a container. You can store values in container. First of all, you give it a name, and then you give it a value, and the value you store in the container. This temporary storage, and you can add, remove, extract, anything you need to do with those variables. In AppGyver, variable types. So we have the simple types, which are the most basic one. That's like a number, true or false. You have the text type, which are all the different like email address, date format, URL. There are lots of them. You have the reference one, which are more variables which have a predefined context, like an icon or a color code. And then we'll talk about the complex types. In the complex types you have an object. An object is like a schema with multiple variables, variable types, again, into one. And there's this the list is a list of variables. All these variables you can use in your AppGyver apps. App variables are variables which are valid for the whole context of the application. So if you have a variable, it's valid for all pages, not only for one. If you create one, it's valid. You can use them for all the different pages you have in your application. And then it disappears when you are closing your app. So let's create this variable. Go to variables, then you select app variables and add a variable. Every variable has a name, so give it a name. We can give it an initial value when the program is started, or you give an example which is then used inside your app. So let's give it an example. Let's type in hello. Let's save it. And now assign this app variable to a component. So we select the component, we select the context, we go to data variables, we go to app variables, and we select the variable we've created. We then save it, press save. And now we've created, now it's connected. So if you then go to the second page, and you go to variables again, you will see that this app variable is also available here. So it's available in every page you have. Okay, now page variables. Page variables are only valid for a particular page. So you really assign this to one particular page. In this example, we have 3 pages, A, B, and C. And every page has its own variable assigned. So if I'm on page B, I cannot access the variable which I declared on page A. And that's the same between C or B. They only have the values which I've assigned them in that page. They have the same name. Doesn't have to be, but they can have the same name. So now let's create a page variable. So give it the name again. It's exactly the same thing. Only now instead of selecting a AppVars, select a page variable. Give the name, and then we'll save it. We go to the view, we can assign it again to the component here. Instead of we use the page variable, we select that page variable and we press save. So now we've done it for one page. Let's go to the second page. And again, look at the page variables. And we only don't see, there's no variables on this page. So page parameters. Page parameters are read only and only from a text-based string. So not numbers, they're just string. You set them on page A and then you send them kind of way to page B. So you can use them on page B. This is if you want to transfer variables between two pages. So you can read it then on page B. So let's go to the page where I want to use the variable. So I'm going to go to variables, I'm going to go to page parameters, and I'm going to say add parameter. Give it a name. In this case, let me call it page parameter. You can only see that there's only text types. There's no numbers here, so you can really only send text. If you send a text and you want to use a number, you first need to convert it into a number using a function. So let me now get a text component where I want to assign it to. And let's assign this parameter to the component. And press save. Now we go back to the first page. Let me create a simple little program. Let's get me a input box, which I will assign, and also a button. Yeah, let me add a button also. Let me change the style of the button. And now let me assign a value. I already have a page variable, and let me select that. So that's the variable that's going to be filled when I enter something in the text. And then then I press the button, and then when the button press, I want to open page number 2. So how do I do that? Go to the logic, select open page, and in open page I select the page 2, and I assign the parameter or the variable, the page variable to the parameter, and I save my code. Perfect. So let me show you how it works on my phone. So I have this variable what you can see is being updated in my input box. I already assigned it also to a component, a text component. And when I press the button, it will go next screen and you can see my variable there. Data variables are similar as page variables. However, their schema, or how they is defined by the data resource, and the data resource is normally linked to an API. So data resource is a complex type. It could be a string or number, it could be anything, but it contains of one or more other variables. So we have two pages, so they are not linked to the app, but you're linked to a page. So every data variable you actually create for a page. In this case, I create a new variable called p, which is linked to the data resource called dr. I can then fill or read only or whatever I do with the variable on the page, and I can fill this complex schema. As you can see, and the moment the page is not used anymore, these page variables are also removed. Okay, data variables also are linked to a data resource. I go to data, go to data source, and in this case I use a standard data resource, what's called open food facts. So you go to the marketplace and you look for open food facts and you press install, which installs this particular API, including the data resource. So the structure of how to receive the data, the schema, how you receive the data, I will then use. So now I go to variables, I go to data variables, I then add the data var and add open food facts. In this case, it's the single record. Normally I will use a scanner, but in this case I don't use scanner. I just take the default number. So when it goes out, API calls the API and then comes back with all the food facts. And with the food facts, I want to write the name of the food fact. So I go to my data variables in my complex schema. You see there's multiple layers in here. It's a complex schema with lots of different layers. And there's other videos where I explain a bit more about APIs. So have a look at those ones. I link them below. I think it's somewhere here or on top. So I now created this this data variable. It's only set for one page. So if you want to create on the other page also, you want to call the same API, you need to call a new data variable. Again, you create a new data variable for that particular page. There are two types of special variables in AppGyver. There are system variables. Those are defined by AppGyver. It's all about information about running on your device. So there's screen height, there's screen width. These are only read-only, so you can't change it. But it updates when those parameters or variables changes also on the device. The other thing, there are sensor variables like GPS or the accelerometer. Again, these are only read-only, and that's actually for both. You can only use them when your device is active, and then you can read this data and use this data in your apps. So let me show you how you now get one of those special variables. So we're going to use the sensor variables in this case. So let's get a text component. Let's add it and link the component to one of these sensor variables. There's multiple ones. There's the barometer. There's the compass with all the values in there. And there's the magnometer. And so let's go back and select the barometer now. And we take the pressure. These only be read. You actually have to create a action to read it. So let's find that action already. I installed already, but you can just look for it in the marketplace. Look for barometer and then get single barometer value. So this only triggers a read of that value where you can use in your app. I already installed it, so I don't have to do it. I can see it here. So let's tap. So when I tap on this title, then get that single barometer value. Let me show you. So I click it on at hello, and there's the barometer reading. So let's do a recap. In AppGyver, we have different types of variables with different scopes. We have the app variables, which are existing for your whole app. When you start your app, you can assign variables, and when you close your app, those are being removed again. We have the page variables, which are only valid for a particular page. We have the page parameters, which you can transfer values from one page to the other page. Or we have data variables, which are like page variables, but they are a complex type of data variables, and they're only being used in combination with data resources. Then we have two types of special variables, One of the system variables, which is really what's running on your device. It could be the screen size of your device. It could be anything what's running, the system type, the OS, if it's a tablet or is it a iPhone. Then there's also the sensor variables like GPS, barometer, all this kind of thing. These are all the special variables. They're only read-only, and you can use them again in all of your code. I hope you liked this tutorial about variables. If you want to see more of these videos, please subscribe to my channel. If you like the videos, just give me a thumbs up. And now, only thing I can say, stay curious and see you in the next video.